Hello, everybody. I'm going to be talking about, and so is Petra and Sebastian and Hayden, talking about entries that we made to the Curious Refuge Halloween competition last month. So Halloween may seem a long way away, you know, we're all talking about Christmas, but we're going to take you back there and give you a bit of dose of horror tonight and talk you through the very different experiences I think we had. Mine was very much a solo entry, so I was working on my own, whereas Petra and Sebastian and Hayden were working collaboratively. So it'd be really interesting to compare and contrast. Unfortunately, neither of us ended up in the finals, but there was over 500 entries for this competition, so it's perhaps not surprising. So I'm going to be screening for the European premiere, shall we say, of The Secret Séance, which was my entry. 5 minutes long. It was literally 5 minutes to the frame, which was the maximum duration that you could have. So it's one of the longest pieces I've ever done in AI. So if we cut the lights, then I can play it. Try not to be scared, it's only AI.
On the 14th of January 1887, in Pimlico, London, 6 people entered the séance room of medium Daphne Granger. Only 5 of them would leave alive. Using recently discovered witness accounts and actual photographs taken that day, their terrifying story can now be told for the first time in over 100 years.
I was present at the séance solely to document proceedings. I set up my camera in the dimly lit room and took my first exposure. The scene was typical of such gatherings and betrayed none of the horrors to come.
My husband and I had attended many séances together, but never before had I experienced such a sense of foreboding. I am certain my husband felt it too.
By the power of the circle,
as Miss Granger called upon the spirits, we both observed an apparition taking form above us.
The second photograph I captured clearly shows a cloud-like formation hovering above the séance table.
It was then that I noticed a change in Miss Granger's voice. Her speech took on a low and hideous tone. I realized we had awakened a force of pure evil.
John Ashcroft was pronounced dead at the scene. Despite the witness testimonies and photographic evidence presented, the inquest attributed his death to natural causes. He was 58 years old. Daphne Granger was deemed unfit to testify. She never recovered from her ordeal and spent the rest of her life in the infamous Bethlehem Mental Asylum. Deemed too disturbing for public record, all witness testimonies and 3 photographs taken during the séance were sealed by court order and locked away in archives, until their discovery over a century later.
The third and final photograph I took that day is not merely an image of the séance, it is a glimpse of something far darker, something that was never meant to be seen.
So, spooky. The first thing I think to say is that the music was not AI generated. It was 100% human generated. It was actually a library track that I found on Artlist, but absolutely perfectly captured what I wanted to do. I'm happy to keep the lights off. It might be easier, as long as you can see me, obviously. So this whole idea really came from my fascination with these sort of Victorian photographs of seances, that sort of spiritualism era, and the early 20th century, and the weird sort of ectoplasm photos that you have. These really, I saw these at a very early age, and they really freaked me out, and have obviously stuck with me. And I knew that this competition was happening, and I was trying to think of an idea. It was obviously in my subconscious. I woke up at 3:30 in the morning and literally had the whole of the opening VO in my head about this séance that was fatal. I actually Googled to see if any séances were fatal, and unfortunately none of them were, so I had to completely make it up. But these were the tools that I used. There's 9 tools there, all AI driven. There's 10 if you count Photoshop, which I used a lot of generative fill and what have you with Photoshop as well. ChatGPT was my sort of collaborator throughout. Love working with ChatGPT, and I fed it in my initial idea, and it just is so enthusiastic and is like, yeah, that's fantastic, let's do it. So we worked that up together. It was brilliant at coming up with things that were perfect for the era. You know, it really understood that this was the late 1800s, and so everything it came up with was in that right tone of voice. It worked out the character names, the characters, and it also was brilliant for things like, what does a medium say in a séance? I've never been to one, but ChatGPT knows all about that, so it was able to give me like an incantation. It also gave me, I asked it quite politely, please could you help me with something Miss Granger might say if she had become possessed by the devil? Certainly, yeah, I can do that for you. So it came up with this devil speech, and literally this freaked me out, but the moment that this came up, I got this network error. And I was like, seriously, I don't think it was anything like censoring me, but it just was a coincidence, but it freaked me out. And then I got it to translate that into Latin for me, so it's actually a proper what the devil might say if it speaks Latin. I then took that into 11 Labs and found somebody had already created a demon monster voice, so I didn't have to do anything to that. It was all reverbed up nicely, and it sounded like this when I put it in. So.
Stulgi, auditis me evocare, nihil valent preces vestrae, fides vestra cinis.
So that was text to speech, which I don't normally use, but I can't speak Latin, so I thought it was better to let it, to speak text to speech. Most of it was actually my voice, and in fact, all of it, apart from that devil thing, was my voice. So this is me. If I play.
On the 14th of January 1887, in Pimlico, London, 6 people entered the séance room of medium Daphne Granger.
And then you'll hear, I went and found again an already existing voice.
On the 14th of January 1887, in Pimlico, London, 6 people entered the séance room of medium Daphne Granger.
So I loved the quality of that voice, but it was pre-existing. I didn't have to do anything to create that. And then, just like I was taught at film school, I went through and hand drew all the storyboards, because you've got to know where you're going with these things. You know, you have to have it all planned out meticulously before you go into production. That's actually complete rubbish. I didn't do that at all. These are all created after the fact by what's it, Midjourney's retexture feature. It's very good for creating storyboards. I didn't work like that at all. I dived straight in. I was too excited. And with these tools, you really don't have to plan things out. You can get in and do a little bit of an R&D stage and just chuck an image in. This isn't even an image that was the right characters or anything. And you're starting to see, right, Midjourney does these really slow-mo kind of shots. That's, you know, interesting but not very useful for these sort of shots. Dream Machine is brilliant if you give it 2 different images at morphing from one to the other. So that was 2 images given to it, a beginning and an end frame. And then Kling and Minimax just do these mad movements, which we have not seen in AI video until quite recently. And I was actually able to take a couple of little clips from these test shots, which aren't even the right image, and they became quite, great happy accidents, really, that I was able to add in. So the moment that she explodes, if you look at the Kling thing there, I sped it up in the final film, but it was just an accident, really. And the moment where the woman runs away and you get these sort of whip pans in the Minimax was from those early tests. So I think the real money shot in the whole film is this. This was actually created in Kling. And it's really what I dove into quite early on. So it's all based on this wider shot. So I created this wider shot first of all in Midjourney. That's the prompt that I used for that. And that sort of established the characters and the basic settings. So it's a good idea to get your sort of establishing shot. And then I took that into Midjourney as a reference, a character reference, and the little paperclip there means it's a style reference as well. So it was doing both of those jobs, and I gave it a different prompt for a more of a close-up on the medium. Here's a few that I created. So a few different angles, a few different ones. This one I really liked, but it wasn't quite right. So then I did some in-painting, which is where you can draw around areas. For those of you who don't know, you can draw around areas, give it a different prompt. So I prompted for arm spread, curtains partially closed, and you get this. So from that, you can turn it into this. So that's a really powerful feature. Then I thought, well, I'll take that into Kling and I'll prompt for her to turn into this screaming, hideous monster with glowing eyes. And this is what I got. So it didn't really follow the prompt, but what I did get from this was a different shot where the camera's moved in a little bit, the smoke in the background has moved on, the parallaxing is different, so it's very different to just using a zoomed in version of the original shot. And I was able to take that frame grab, take that into Photoshop, and using generative fill, prompted for a hideous screaming monster looking to camera, and it gives you 3 options, luckily, because that one is not very good, but this one was the 3rd option. So all I had to do then with my limited Photoshop skills was put some glowing eyes in there, and I had my beginning frame and my end frame. So that's how those 2 were created. Then I was able to take that into Kling, and with Kling you can put in an opening frame and a closing frame and a prompt to get you between the 2. And this was the first take, not quite right, but not bad. And then literally this was the 2nd time I ran it. I just got this, and it just kind of gave me chills. I was like, that is going to really make the film. And then I was able to sort of work from that, knowing that I had this kind of money shot in the bag. There you go. So Midjourney was the tool of choice for doing most of my images. I don't think many people realise just how many images you have to make a 5-minute film with AI these days. It's an awful lot, and a lot of these are sort of in-painted, sort of different versions. In fact, I created 2,729 images. This was across a couple of weeks, really, 2 to 3 weeks, but I was doing it around other projects. Quite a lot of late nights. The other image generation tool that I used was Ideogram. Ideogram is brilliant for doing text. Midjourney, despite what they claim, is pretty awful still at doing text. But Ideogram is brilliant. It's a real kind of, it's like a little graphic designer in there beavering away. And it will write things correctly spelled, but also really good design. It really understands design and what you might want. And in fact, I created the logo lockup. This was literally on my very first prompt, and it created this lovely logo lockup, and I was able to bang it over a still, and I've got my key art. So I created only 86 images using Ideogram. So Runway is, you need to know what these tools are good at. So Runway is brilliant for drone shots, tracking shots, up and down like rostrum shots, slow moves. It's brilliant at retaining all of the quality of the image, the original image, and you don't get too much warping or anything like that. So it's definitely got its place in the sort of toolbox of AI tools, but it isn't going to give you fantastic character action. It will tend to be slow motion. It's not the most believable in terms of what's going on with that. So I didn't tend to use it too much for those sort of character shots. I leaned more towards some of the other tools for that. I still made 401 videos in Runway. I find, it's brilliant that you've got this turbo mode now that generates really quickly, and you've got like unlimited. If you're prepared to pay about 75 quid a month, you get an unlimited package, but you need it because you have to re-roll Runway stuff a lot, I find. These shots were quite interesting because they are exactly the same house. If you look, there's 2 columns on the left and 1 on the right, and that is consistent between both houses and both shots of the same house. And all the windows, everything absolutely identical. And that's quite a tricky thing to do with a house. It's hard enough to do with a character, but to do it with a house, I had to kind of work out how to do this. So I thought I would be able to generate that image of this angle and then do what I did before, is treat it like a character, use the character reference feature and the style reference, give it another prompt to say, we now want to see this from the front on, and I started to get houses like this, which is not the same house. And maybe there's a better way I could have done this within Midjourney, but actually what I decided to do after quite a lot of iterations was take it into Runway, and then if I just pop back, use it as a first frame of a video and get the camera to move left and pan right and end up on a front-on shot of the Victorian home. And that then gave me this. So Runway is brilliant at understanding the kind of geography of a shot like that, and the fact that if you come round to this angle, you then get a different angle of it. So I was then able to jump back a little bit, get a frame grab, and then take that into a tool called Magnific, which is a creative upscaler, or it's got a creative upscaler within it. Hopefully you can see, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the projector, but it is putting some extra detail in that. In the top of the columns and in the brickwork, you see there's some extra detail. So Magnific is a really good tool for adding extra detail, extra realism into shots. And then with Photoshop, I was just able to put back in the tree that had disappeared and the light pole. And that way I had 2 shots, 2 different angles, but exactly the same house. So on the first shot, I actually used that image that I'd created as the last frame, and got Runway to imagine what was behind that as it moved forward. And then on the other shot, I used it as a first frame and got it to move forward. So you've now got camera controls within Runway. You didn't have those back then. You had to do it with just text, way back when, like last month. So all these steps are just imagined by Runway. They're not something that existed in any other way. And also on the longer shot, you'll see in a minute a little change in the light quality. So just coming up about now, there you go. That is where I've extended, and this shot is actually 30 seconds long because I've extended a 10-second shot twice, and you get these little changes in colour, in contrast. But because it was an old film look, I got away with a lot of that, which would be a bit more tricky if you're doing something in full colour. Magnific has also got a brilliant tool within it, an image generator called Mystic, and it's based on Flux, I think, and it does these amazing, very, very real portrait shots. And I worked out that the technology at the time would have been this thing called dry plate, or gelatin dry plate, and if I put that in, it just understood that straight away, that was the kind of look and feel that I wanted. I also created this image using Mystic, but the lighting wasn't quite right on it, so I was able to turn it into this sort of lighting by using this amazing relighting tool within there, where you can give it a reference. This is a reference from a Mid-Journey image, where you've got much more sort of contrast going on, and I was able then to use that to turn one image into the other, which is pretty incredible. So that's Magnific. Minimax, we love Minimax. They give us beer. So Minimax really was my special effects team and my stunt team, if you like. They did amazing things with, like this smoke. I prompted it to come out of her mouth, knowing that trying to get her to suck the smoke in might be difficult, and then I could just run it backwards. So that's what I did. I didn't use the whole shot, but I ran it backwards. This, where she explodes, was not really prompted. It was a happy accident. And this is the thing of, if you jump in and start actually playing and generating and don't have too fixed an idea of exactly what you want, you'll get these little happy accidents, and then you can kind of work your story around them, really. And it ends up looking like, wow, you know, how did you prompt that? Well, I didn't. It was kind of a happy accident. And it's a bit like working with actors that are improvising, I always think. You know, you do get these directors that go out there and they don't really want to have the script too locked down, and they want people to just, you know, react and interact in front of the camera. And it's a similar sort of thing that I found with Minimax. The heart attack just blew me away when I saw that. It's, you know, it was a very simple prompt as well. Man stands up, has a heart attack, falls down, and there it goes. It does it. Amazing. I only had to create 97 videos, which is like 4 times less than Runway. So it shows that Minimax is good at prompt adherence, and you know, you don't have to do too many reruns. There's another few happy accidents. This, where the devil sort of comes down out of the, you know, I love the way that's a sort of a double dip, but it's not in my prompt. It was just, you know, again, a happy accident. And then this image here, again, if you look at the prompt, it's not really, you know, it's very shaky, was my camera prompt, and it's obviously picked that up and done that for the character. But I saw that and I was like, that is freaky, I've got to use it. And so then this whole sequence of her exploding kind of grew out of that. There was some interesting outtakes, so that one didn't quite make it. Whoops, hang on, let's go back. This one's a bit like a Three Stooges farce. I'm not quite sure what's going on here. Strange. And then, yeah, it's, because some of this is like lost in translation. When you look at the prompt, you're like, how did it end up with a gun? But it's you know, it's a Chinese made tool, so I guess there's something in my prompt that has picked up that it might need a spinning gun. And then this was a bit of a bizarre one. It does keep you entertained in those long nights. And then, yeah, we'll call you. Kling, I think, was, you know, there was definite money shots that I got from Kling. It really gave me performance, and it gave me some amazing sort of special effects as well. When I prompted, and this was on the very first prompt, this scream that the guy does, I was like, that is fantastic. You know, that is such, if that was an actor and you were getting a performance like that, you'd be like, great. And yet this is all AI. So Kling is amazing at doing emotion and just motion in general. It's very believable. And again, not too many re-rolls compared to Runway, so 161 there. Dream Machine, bless Dream Machine, it blew us all away. Like, a few months ago when it first came out, because it was the first of all these new generation really of AI tools that was giving us something more. It has lagged behind since, I think. It's very, very good for this, doing transitions between one completely different shot and another. It would do some really creative, really interesting things. But for this particular project, I really only used these shots out of 122 that I generated. So I really gave it a chance, but I just kept going back to the other tools and thinking that they were doing a better job. Okay, so in all, I created 781 videos. And if on average, let's say they were about 7 seconds, that's 91 minutes of footage. And that, if you divide it up by 5 minutes, is actually a shooting ratio of 18:1. So it's not actually too high. You know, a shooting ratio of 18:1 is not bad if you were shooting a feature film. I'm nearly finished, so don't worry about wrapping me up. So I run a course called the Gent AI Survival Guide for Creatives. I'm running it again in December. I'm running you can't actually see the code there because something's gone wrong with my deck, but the code is, hang on, no, I can't change it while I'm playing, but the code is Black Friday, one word. If you want 25% off Black Friday, running that till the end of Sunday, and you can jump on. It's a whole week with 3 sessions where I do this kind of stuff and talk about my projects. So there you go, the Secret Séance.